let's talk about CPAC going to Hungary. Now, before we begin, I just want to promote a book review that we did on lotus.com called The Populist Delusion by some female Iranian author. No, I'm joking. As a friend of mine, Nima Parvini. He thinks that it is not that the people rule. He's an adherent to Italian elite theory. And so it's not that the people themselves rule, it's that a cadre of elites rule in the people's stead. And the question is, are your elites in doing what you want, or are they serving some other agenda? Now, I think we can safely say that the elites of the West have been serving an internationalist agenda for the last couple of decades, and this is why CPAC going to Hungary is outraging them so much, because if there's one thing you can't accuse Viktor Orban of, it's being a globalist.
Right.
He is definitely acting in the best interest of the population of Hungary. And so let's begin.
Well, I'll put just another finer point on it. In the best interest of the population of Hungary and their future.
Yes.
Unlike globalists, neo-libs, neocons for the last 30 years, 40 years, he has really thought about, okay, what happens 3 generations hence?
And that's the important thing, isn't it? Because one thing that you can't deny is that in the West, our ruling elites have just been burning the future to pay for the debts of the present. And they assume that they can just burn infinitely into the future. But at some point, the bill is going to arrive. And I guess they're just hoping that they're all dead when it does.
Yeah, I don't know if they even think in those terms.
Well, no, I don't think they do.
And then they just right. I mean, they just avoid it. It's certain to happen. Look, we're seeing it happen.
Yeah.
And when someone stands up and says no, they get the Orban treatment, which is the Trump treatment and the Bolsonaro treatment, etc.
Yeah, but Orban gets it worse than others, though. He's constantly called a dictator or an autocrat, which I find fascinating. We'll talk about as we go through this, in fact. But anyway, so you were at CPAC and you spoke.
Yes.
Would you like to give me a quick overview of how it was?
Well, full disclosure, I worked for the Orban government for a bit, doing media relations in the United States.
Is this a part of that?
Is this a part of that? No, it's not. It's not. I have not taken any money from them in quite some time.
Right.
I mean, I was asked to speak because I'm a conservative in the United States who has a platform and speaks a lot about Hungary and Hungary issues. So I went there and I gave a speech about the importance of language, and as it relates to the maintenance, the survivability of the nation, and what happens when the homogeneity that comes in. I mean, globalism is an enemy of particularity.
Oh yes.
And the Hungarian language is very, very particular, and he and many of his voters, I mean, even the people who hate him, are still sympathetic to the broad outlines of his program, which is, a very common sense idea that yes, we have a nation, yes, we have borders, yes, we have traditions, and we need to do things to maintain them. Yeah. And they're fundamentally not buying into abstract conceptions of, hey, we can all be the same. We
Abstract
are the same.
Liberal conceptions. Universal human.
Right. Universal values. Yeah. The universal values delusion, which I've been talking about a long time, which is kind of the engine for all of these stupid policy things that came after the end of the Cold War. Like almost every post-Cold War thing has been marinated in this universal values delusion. And one of the things that many Hungarians said was, look, the Cold War was awful. It was really bad. The Soviets were terrible. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise because it allowed us to see what's going on in the West. And it gave us a distance. It gave us some perspective in terms of the distance. Now, I mean, I ran into Hungarian young people and, about 17, very bright, perfect English, the whole thing. Yeah. And they look and they say, the West has nothing for me. The United States has nothing for me. It's all woke, crazy.
They've got fentanyl.
Right.
They've got Big Macs.
Right. No, I mean, they look at it and they say, this is, they understand, if I'm straight, if I'm white, I'm not getting into a university in the West. And, they're afraid to say anything because they'll be canceled. So they are very aware of what's going on here. I mean, something else was interesting is the CPAC Hungary played a video integrating U.S. issues into kind of Hungarian issues. Like they had Antifa and BLM and the gender stuff and DeSantis and Florida and Trump in this video in Hungarian. And then you kind of realize, yes, these are all at bottom the same issues. And I think that's, I think that's, really the only key to understanding what's going on here because...
Oh no, I think this is completely fair, and this is the split between the conservatives and the left. Is that the Enlightenment has always been predicated on this kind of thought experiment of the universal human. But the thing is, there is no such thing as a universal human. Every human comes from a particular time and particular place with particular culture, with particular customs that has an individual national character that is distinguishable from other nations and can't be replicated in other countries. It's a unique world historical event, each country. And so, I mean, you can go to literally any of them, Locke, Rousseau, they all imagine stripping a human being of that cultural baggage and inheritance they carry and saying, well, this could be for any human. It's like, yeah, but it won't be for any human. That's the thing. When you say it's a universal human, you're pointing to a nobody, someone who doesn't exist. And the fact that the Hungarian conservatives can recognize that's the inflection point at which the conservatives can actually start winning. You are appealing to nobody. You are appealing to a nothing. Orban can at least identify his constituency, which is the Hungarians, whereas the left can only say, well, it's a hypothetical universal human being. So
right.
That doesn't exist.
And for Hungarians, that is a very powerful thing because they know innately that their language is, it's not completely endangered. It's not on the, endangered species list.
No, but they're only like
but
8 million
they need to
Hungarians,
maintain it. It's 13 million Hungarian speakers.
Right.
And 10 million inside the country.
Right.
But the other thing that I pointed out was that social media breaks this down.
Yeah.
Because if you want to engage in social media, you're going to, you're going to not be Instagramming in Hungarian. Yeah. You want everybody to see. So, of course, it's good that everybody's learning these languages, but for little countries with particular languages and particular cultures, that is, it's a balancing act that needs to be maintained.
No, I agree. So anyway, let's talk about Orban opened CPAC by speaking very directly, I think, to obviously speaking to American conservatives, but I think it is important for conservatives generally because, this guy, he knows exactly the problems that are going on here. He thinks that 2024 will be decisive and says we need to take back the institutions in Washington and Brussels. We need to find friends. We need to find allies. We need to coordinate the movement of our troops, because metaphoric troops, that is, because we have a big challenge ahead of us. And so he's saying that there needs to be an international alliance of nationalists.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly. I think that any nation, any party all around the world should ally itself with similar groups. At the end of the day, who is it? It's not about a particular policy decision. It's about, okay, how do we live in the modern world? How do we live into the 21st century, but maintain our national character? That's the essential question.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about Hungary and Brazil and the U.S. under Trump and Brexit and like all these movements. I think, okay, maybe now it's a little different, but like during Trump's period, you could put Israel and you could put Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and some other countries into that group because they're all fighting. Any country with a strong, let's say, religious identity or a strong history of, a strong cultural history is going to be pushing up against that. Homogenizing globalism.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think that Orban is actually completely right here. And so it is nice that there are you can point to Modi, Bolsonaro, Orban, Trump was one. These people are not the same. They're not the same. They're nationally a product of their own countries, but they understand that they're facing the same force. And so there does need to be some sort of coalition. And anyway, so he's very aware that the media is the powerful agent in this. We can go to the next one. He told CPAC that the path to power is to have your own media, and God, that is the truth, isn't it? Yeah.
It's absolutely true. Orban realized in the 90s, or and then subsequently the 2000s, 2010, that it was crucial to have a real robust media in Hungary that supports the right.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, we it's amazing. In the United States, we really don't have that.
Well, I tell you, you've at least got something.
We have something.
What do we have in Britain?
Yeah, no, you
oh
guys
my
are.
God! Like even if you read the Daily Mail, it's like 50% leftist.
Sure.
At least Fox News has some good commentators on it.
Yes, and I mean, Canada's also in a horrible situation.
Yeah.
And they can, but yeah, look, I mean, it needs to be solved.
Yeah.
What Orban realized was that essential to his, maintaining in power and also doing the things that Hungary needs to do is he would have to surround himself with very wealthy, businessman, a businessman class that is going to support these institutions. I mean, we in the United States, we don't have that at all.
No, you've got a couple of angel investors, should we call them, like Peter Thiel and.
Yeah, and then we have people who just kind of habitually give to these old institutions, which, as we'll talk about later, are not actually right wing.
Have been captured.
Yes.
But he says this: you have to have your own media. It's the only way to point out the insanity of the progressive left. The problem is that Western media is adjusted to the leftist viewpoint. Those who taught reporters in the universities already had progressive leftist principles. Of course, the GOP has its media allies, but they can't compete with the mainstream liberal media. My friend Tucker Carlson is the only one who puts himself out there. His show is the most popular. What does it mean? It means that programs like his should be broadcasted day and night, or as you say, 24/7. I mean, he's not wrong, is he?
No, he's not wrong.
He's completely correct. The media is generally left-wing, and they are very, very powerful. And this is the reason that the right really needs to be able to understand. Look, if you want to be competitive in persuading people that your stories have validity, then you have to have a media apparatus that is capable of challenging left-wing narratives, because this is how they got everyone on board. They didn't do it with the gun this time. They did it by persuasion, believe it or not, by framing. And that's the issue with the media, is that every battle they fight when they put out a story is captured in the framing. They frame it in a particular way that there's only one inevitable moral conclusion, and that's how people are brought on board. Yes,
the good guy, the bad guy, is apparent in everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, in addition to having our own media, not just a little website here and there, but our own mass media.
Yeah.
We also have to have people who staff it, who are aware of how this is done.
And we don't have universities that are pumping out right-wing journalists.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Well, the old saw was, or maybe I came up with this, was that every left-wing journalist wants to be a muckraker. Every right-wing journalist wants to be George Will. They want to be a commentator. And I've worked at several. I worked at Breitbart. I've worked at several right-wing media outlets, and people want to be commentators. They don't want to do right. It's fun. Hey, I get paid for my opinions.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do the hard work of researching a story, doing the beat work, all that stuff.
Yeah. God bless James O'Keefe.
Yes.
But in the meantime, if you want to support right-wing media, sign up to lotus.com. Help us grow. Anyway, the Conservatives, of course, want to make the US more like Hungary, according to The Guardian.
Oh, no. Terrifying.
What would you say the quality of life in Hungary is like?
The quality of life in Hungary.
Say the Californian bugman who's paying $3,000 for a one-room box.
Oh my gosh! Well, look, I can't speak to Hungary. I can speak to Budapest.
Right.
I have friends who are American and picked up and now live there. They're in language classes, which are very hard, and things like that. But the quality of life is amazing. It's absolutely safe. It's completely safe.
Can you imagine being a New Yorker and calling where you live the capital city of it's not even capital city, but calling a major city safe in America? And
it's also wholesome. Wholesome in a way that like you would say wholesome.
Yeah.
It's not. There's a level of depravity that you get used to, like
In San Francisco.
ambient depravity that you get used to in the United States. In San Francisco, it's more than just ambient, you know. But
invasive depravity,
right? But there it just does not exist. I mean, I wake up in the morning, go downstairs in my hotel, and there's a flute duet, you know, two girls playing the flute.
How nice.
And how nice, right? So I mean, I feel like that was an encapsulation of the time there. Yes, of course, you go into the countryside, and you know, things are different. Things are like in the countryside of any Central or Eastern European country, but it's a wonderful place to. It's you're surrounded by beauty.
But you don't have just, you know, drug addicts wandering like zombies through the streets, taking dumps on the sidewalk.
No, you don't. You don't have gangs of migrant.
Really? No gangs of feral youths stabbing each other in the middle of the street. Either.
No, you don't have that. In fact, you see young kids together, you know, 1, 2, or 3, taking the metro themselves at night or in the afternoon, and you know, going for whatever, to grab something from the store for their parents.
Like how we used to do.
Like how we used to grow up. Yeah. Exactly right.
Because we lived in safe countries. What a terrifying thought. What a terrifying thought, says Andrew.
So all of these people are reading from the script that was Anne Applebaum's initially. Anne Applebaum and a couple other people, but she was the one really who developed a great reputation in the U.S. for her work on communism.
Right.
She was great. I mean, she was a hero of many of ours on the right. Mm-hmm. And then she was broken by Trump.
Right.
And the fact that she's married to a Polish parliament member, runs in the Davos, let's say, dinner party circuit. And the problem with Hungarian is that it's complicated. And the problem with news out of Hungary is that it's necessarily gate-kept by this fact. So everything anyone knows about Hungary, it's from 1, 2, 3 people.
Well, okay. Well, let's use a quote that actually really highlights what you're saying there. It's no exaggeration to say that Orbanism, with its rejection of democracy and its willingness to use coercion to enforce a narrow cultural and religious agenda, defines the danger posed by modern American conservatives.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolute hysteria. It's based on nothing. Nobody knows what, you know. It's circular reporting.
Yes.
It's the opinion version of circular reporting. And people say these things, and it's like, okay, you know, we're just going to push it. You get yourself very riled up by it. I know Steve Schmidt, who was at the Lincoln Project, utter weirdo, did.
He's not the guy who was accused of pedophilia.
No, he was. It was a different one, but he kept it quiet. But he's also, I mean, he's a maniac, and it's looked like he went on a crazed, you know, cocaine binge and just tweeted. He probably tweeted 400, you know, things about Hungary, all of which were exactly this: NPC, you know, paint by numbers, nonsense, conventional wisdom.
And so, I mean, just the idea, like Orban's rejection of democracy. They keep saying Orban's an autocrat, right? But the thing is, you just go to his Wikipedia page, you can see when he was in office, right? If you scroll down just a little bit to the contents bit, so just so you can see, right? Early career, 1988 to 1998, then first premiership, 1998 to 2002, and then leader of the opposition for 8 years. So 2 election cycles. He's the leader of the opposition. That's not what an autocrat does. Like, Vladimir Putin was at no point the leader of the opposition during his time not being the president, and then second premiership. As in, the people of Hungary voted him out of office. What kind of autocrat gets voted out of office?
Right, and look, I mean...
That's not to say that Viktor Orban is not corrupt, or something like that, or that he's, you know, some wonderful good guy, but you can't say that he's a dictator.
If the state of New York was its own country, Andrew Cuomo,
one party,
right? Then it would be a one-party state with its own media that is, the New York City media, run by, you know, a guy with every possible, every possible, corruption scandal and all this stuff. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a country of 10 million people, and I mean, I see this stuff and it makes me angry. on one hand, but on the other hand, I realize that people are now waking up. The same vocabulary is being used over and over again because it's tired, and also because of that gatekeeping effect. There are only so many people who are originating the memes.
Yeah.
There are not that many meme writers about Hungary.
Unsurprisingly, yeah.
Right. And the ones that are almost always completely funded by Soros.
That's you're absolutely right. The Soros Foundation funds almost everything that's what I would describe as kind of civilizational attack on the West. That all of the migrant caravans, and incidentally the Soros Central European University.
Beautiful.
The next one. That was a good tweet.
Yeah.
I told you he was a savage on Twitter, didn't I? Soros Central European University was the Orban government closed down and ran out of the country. Suck it, libs.
Look, I mean,
oh no, I agree.
You've got to be there on that street and to see the context of this. What I consider to be. I mean, it's not the most monstrous modern building I've seen.
It's still ugly.
It's still ugly,
compared to the beauty.
Compared to the beauty of the building next to it.
Yeah, we'll show that in a bit actually.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I actually looked into the courses that the Soros University was presenting. It's the most radical social justice courses you can imagine, and they are designed to undermine the fabric of the civilization. There's just no question.
Right, exactly. Designed to.
Yeah, the intent.
That's the point. Yes,
it's all critical theory, which the point is deconstruction. There's no particular reason that should have been allowed, and I don't blame them for doing that at all. And of course, you've got the comparative example in Jack Posobiec at CPAC saying, well, look, you were trying to set up a Ministry of Truth in the United States. That got dissolved too. Good. Suck it. Again, deal with it. Because why would you want these things? Why would you want a university that's only purpose is to put out radical revolutionaries? Why would you want the Department of Defense in America to have a Ministry of Truth? This is when they say, he's attacking our democracy. Good, because your democracy sucks. Like my democracy is where I get to vote for the person in charge, not to allow you to set up a bunch of institutions that destroy the nation. That's just, if that's the way it goes. But anyway, let's go on to him sharing a platform with Trump and some notorious racist anti-Semite. Now, I don't trust the Guardian's reporting on anything. No. But I don't know who Zsolt Bayer is.
I do not either.
Right. Okay. Well, apparently he's some sort of firebrand Hungarian political
shock jock type.
Yeah, shock jock. Yeah, exactly. And Hungary not being a particularly politically correct place.
Right. Well, whenever you see headline or subheads like that, who's called Jews stinking excrement and Roma animals, that something fishy is going on. When the entire sentence is not presented in context, when you can't bother to present the sentence, I'm not talking about the context of the piece or a paragraph. When the entire sentence is not there, when it's like 3 words, you can't believe them.
It's a deliberate cherry pick, isn't it? But now I'm not gonna lie. It does seem this guy is pretty extreme. He said, do we have the? I think they actually have the quote here. So he's a television talk show host in Hungary and has been widely denounced for his racism. During the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, he wrote on his blog, "Is this the future? Kissing the dirty boots of effing racist epithets and smiling at them, being happy about this, because otherwise they'll kill you or beat you up." And in 2011, he used the phrase stinking excrement to refer generically to Jews in England. And in 2013 wrote, "A significant part of the Roma are unfit for coexistence. They are not fit to live among people. These Roma are animals and they behave like animals." So, I mean, I'm not saying that he's not a racist, because it sounds like he is.
Probably is.
Yeah. But either way, he does have some good takes.
Right. I mean, look, this is.
No. He supported the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, which smeared prominent Democrats as pedophiles. That's the good take.
Right.
But no, he seems like he probably is actually a racist. But I mean, it's Eastern Europe. Like, you'll find a lot of people out there are.
Yeah, I mean, of course. But this whole genre of reporting is like, I like to call it the neocon, neolib way of war. This is what they do.
Yeah.
Don't talk about, we're trying to warn you, do not touch that third rail. Do not open your mind to what this person or this group of people is saying.
Yeah.
this is all you need to know to dismiss it, and that's it. And it has worked for a very, very long time. I mean, I know because I did stuff like this 15 years ago.
The person I find it most remarkable that's working against is Alex Jones, ironically enough, because I can't think of anything actually racist Alex Jones has said. Right? Alex Jones is a libertarian, like a really hardcore American libertarian. And so, like, you can say, oh, well, I disagree with his conspiracy theories. Okay, yeah, sure. Right. And, oh, he shouldn't have said anything about Sandy Hook. Yeah, sure. And the Pizzagate thing. Sure, I agree. And he got sued over all of these things because that's what the legal system is there for. But what has he said? That he's never said like black people are inferior or something like that. And so from a progressive point of view, he actually doesn't have the pedigree of crimes that this guy has. And yet they would put him on the same playing field as this. And I just find that fascinating.
And yeah, I mean, and the anti-Semitism thing is such a, it's such a loaded BS charge now. And I say this as a Jew, it's not good. There are people who hate Jews out there, but now all you have to do is hate George Soros, and you get the anti-Semitic label, which is by design, right? Which is absolutely by design. It's either groups and individuals who are funded by Soros or who want to be funded by Soros, and everybody lines up to defend it. But I mean, it is convincing fewer and fewer people every time they do this.
Well, it's like a child lying. The first couple of times they lie, it is quite impactful because you think, oh God, my son would never have lied about that. Okay, what was that? But then it's the boy who cries wolf. It's suddenly like, well, yeah, you said this a lot. Yeah. And it is George Soros. I think there might be legitimate criticisms of Soros that aren't he is Jewish.
Yes.
Anyway, so there were a bunch of other of these which were not very terribly different and terribly interesting.
I didn't see Jim Acosta. Oh, this must be
beautiful. Oh, Jim Acosta. Well, he calls Orban an authoritarian.
Sure,
of course he does.
Because someone told him.
Yeah, and they're just empty allegations of authoritarianism, and it's based on the idea, the presupposition that underpins Acosta's complaints is that the right is essentially not allowed to set their own agenda in the way that the left sets their own agenda. For example, he never complains about the authoritarianism of violating a person's pronouns and the punishments you get for misgendering and things like this, which is actually legal code in England and Canada these days. So, you like hate crimes, hate speech, all of these things that have been... This is left-wing authoritarianism, in my opinion. Acosta's got nothing to say.
Does Viktor Orban have a misinformation and disinformation board?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of either. Yeah.
But then neither does Joe Biden anymore. So, but
they're bringing it back. They're going to bring it back under some other construction. But up until Elon, to bring it back, up until Elon, they had a run of the place.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You are absolutely right, and you're absolutely right that they're going to keep trying.
Yes. They need to. It's an imperative at this point.
Exactly, and it's a religious conviction for them. It's you get up and you feel a natural sort of unshakable impulse to do it. That's how they look at trying to fix the world. It's like it's a genuine crusade for these people.
And I think it's scary because these people genuinely, you say, I mean, it's based on nothing and nonsense, half-heard, repeated talking points, but they legitimately believe that the existence of the right in the world or in the United States is the greatest threat to their life and liberty and this, and which of course justifies them shutting it down. But like I have to tell people, like, they actually do believe this.
Yeah.
They are going to act upon the things that they believe, and they believe this.
And there are a lot of people who underestimate it, aren't they? Like, look, no one really believes that this, whatever crazy statement the left has come out with. It's like,
yeah,
you wouldn't say it if you didn't.
Right.
Because everyone would, if you didn't think that was a true statement, you would then think, oh, well, everyone's going to consider me to be a lunatic, and they'd be like, why are you saying these things?
Yes.
No, they do have genuine convictions. But anyway, let's skip to the final couple of tweets, John, just because we're running out of time. So these are just some beautiful photos you took in Hungary. I mean, that is gorgeous.
It is beautiful. It's a bit of a tourist trap. This is the Nagycsárdok. Next to the university.
Sorry, how do you pronounce that?
Nagycsárdok.
I'm not going to try.
And a big market.
Yeah.
And that's where you go to get all kinds of produce and things like that. And at the top level, they used to have a wonderful Tokaj, bar where you can sit and at all hours you can just drink Tokaj wine and sip on it, and
Nice.
it's usually old men and
Yeah.
playing chess or whatever, and it was a great scene.
It sounds wholesome.
Right. So if you look in the photo, you look closely, you see there's really
bring it up, John?
there's really no trash.
Yeah, this was something I noticed in Poland when I went to Warsaw. It just, okay, hey, look how uncrowded the streets are as well, right? You go to London and there's rubbish all over the streets and people are packed in like sardines. Whereas, just look at this, just looks relaxing.
It's uncrowded, but it never feels desolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is how you want it to be, right?
Exactly. There are people around, obviously, but I don't have to jostle through huge crowds of global nomads to get anywhere. And the people obviously care about the place in which they live. As you say, look at the streets; they look clean. This just looks lovely, and the architecture is beautiful. I love all the old European architecture. Let's go to the next one. Picture the hotel you're at. Can we get some of those up, John? I mean, that is just staggering, isn't it?
That was the first night, and then a couple photos that I found online because they kind of better represented what was going on. That's the outside.
Lovely.
And today it's a hotel. I didn't stay there, but today it's a Hyatt. If you want to stay there, you can stay there. Yeah.
And they don't require any COVID testing to get into Hungary, do they?
So they do not.
Right.
And I think maybe 10 or 12 masks I saw in the whole country for a week.
Because I've not been vaccinated and I haven't even had a test, and I refuse to go anywhere that requires me to even have a test. So
I think you can get away with going to Hungary.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm definitely tempted.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this one between Thomas and Josh on what is wrong with Western philosophy. And if you want to follow Josh, you can follow him on Getter at @Josh_firm on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.